The Psalms of Ascents start with Psalm 120. As you pray through this, we want to begin our prayer time by being vulnerable and honest before God. Of course, any real prayer time begins with vulnerability and honesty, like we saw last week when we looked at Psalms of Lament. Psalm 120, verse 5 says, "Woe to me that I sojourn in Meshech, that I dwell among the tents of Kedar." Woe to me is a very strong expression of emotion. These Hebrew words have some hidden meaning. Meshech means drawing out. Kedar means darkness. And I think that these place names conjure up this struggle that we have sometimes to be real. And so you can start your prayer time by being totally honest with God about how you're feeling, what you're thinking. Let Him draw you out of the darkness. If you consistently do this, besides the answers to prayer that God will give you, you'll be more in touch with your emotions in a healthy way. And this benefits all kinds of people, over-emotional people and under-emotional people, because we can bring our true selves before God. And so start your prayer time by being vulnerable and honest before God. Our next psalm, Psalm 121, we're going to use this to confess idolatry and proclaim our reliance on God alone. Psalm 121 verses 1 and 2 are some of my very favorite verses in the whole Bible. "I lift up my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth." And so the psalmist here is not just looking at the beautiful hills and saying, "Where does my help come from?" The hills in those times were full of false gods. We've read about them. They're called the high places. And so he looks at them and all of these gods surrounding him in the hills, and he says, "My help comes from the Lord." He chooses God to be his helper. Know that whatever you are just vulnerable about and whatever is going to come next in your prayer time, God and only God will be the ultimate answer. Idols won't help. Get the idols out. Tell God about what you're tempted to worship so that He can be your only God. Confess idolatry and proclaim reliance on God alone. Psalm 122, pray for peace. Psalm 122 verse 6 says, "Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May they be secure that love you." Have you ever prayed for peace so that you could fully worship God? This is a time to pray for focus, time, energy, insight, for a settled spirit so that you can go to that whole other place with God without things holding you back. When we're not at peace because the world is not at peace or our hearts are troubled, as disciples, we still need to struggle to find peace for ourselves so that we can go to God. I had some prayer times like that this week where I was just praying for peace in my spirit and in my heart. And I really feel like God's taken me to a whole new place, even though I didn't go anywhere at all. Pray for peace. Psalm 123. Admit that you are a helpless sinner in need of mercy. Psalm